All right, well, I'm back at the SASE stand here with Mike Scott again. And Mike, when I was whiteboarding with Scott, one of the things he brought up was Zero Trust Network Access, or ZTNA. That has become one of the hot buzzwords in the industry. I get asked a lot of questions about it. But again, it's another one of those terms that tends to have multiple meanings, right? So from your perspective, what is Zero Trust and why is it important today?
Zero Trust is the concept that by default, users have no access to anything. So it's an opt-in model versus an opt-out. So if you look at the old VPN access models or the legacy VPN access models, once someone has access to the network, they have access to everything on the network. Zero Trust, on the other hand, even if someone has network access, based on the policy for that specific user, they have to be specifically allowed access to any application or network function before they'll be able to use it.
Yeah, I've often thought about it as flipping networking around, right? The IP protocol works well because once you're connected, you have access to everything, which is why I can type vmware.com in a browser and I get instant access. The downside of that is once you breach, they have access to everything.
Correct.
Right? And so now if we flip that around and say you have access to nothing unless explicitly allowed, of course, that's a lot more secure. But is that more complicated?
No, it's not more complicated. In a way, it's a lot simpler because when you have a ZTNA or a secure access solution, the end user management and the policy enforcement is all done through a single entity. It's in a centralized location.
Okay. And so show us exactly how your ZTNA solution works then.
Okay, from a basic architecture perspective, you've got an end user here, so that could be someone on their own device, laptop, sitting, anywhere, and in a coffee shop, accessing
that hybrid worker that we've all become so accustomed to.
Yeah, the work from anywhere person. And so there's a thin client that goes onto that establishes a secure tunnel into one of our SASE POPs. It uses DNS to go to the closest SASE POP, and then what it does is it authenticates to the secure access gateway. And what's really interesting about our architecture that I think differentiates us from a lot of other SASE vendors is we've always had a cloud-first approach, even in the SD-WAN days, where our SD-WAN gateways were established out in the cloud. So what we've done is we've continued that architectural approach with SASE. We have our secure access gateway as well as cloud web security that are functions that have been deployed alongside our gateway in the cloud, and that enables us to service chain those things together. So once someone has authenticated to the SASE POP, now they can go out through cloud web security to the internet, or they can access applications or resources on another SD-WAN site within the customer network.
So the old way of doing this is we'd have connected through VPN to an edge, you've been given access to everything.
Correct.
Trombone the traffic back and forth, so we'd have poor performance and less security.
Right.
Now, because we're directly connected to the cloud, we get very granular what we allow access to, correct?
Correct, and to kind of extend that idea a little bit further, what you used to see with a lot of on-prem deployments, you'd see customers would backhaul their traffic to a centralized data center location, then they have like a single big firewall, IDS, IPS, and that's the mechanism by which they control access out to the internet. Today, there's really no reason to backhaul to an on-prem data center location since most of the traffic is going out to the cloud, which is why this approach really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but what did the big firewall vendors do? They made a lot of money selling those, didn't they?
That's true. Yeah.
Mike, I want to shift a little bit and talk about the benefits of Zero Trust networking. And to me, one of the big benefits is just limiting lateral access. So with the old VPN model, right, once you had access to one application, that threat actor, if the user was breached, would have access to everything, right? And so how does Zero Trust change that?
What Zero Trust does is it limits the blast radius of any potential breaches. So if an unauthorized user or threat actor gains access to the network, what they gain access to is limited by the Zero Trust model. So they can only gain access to that one particular area. It prevents them from looking around, mapping the network, enumerating the network, and making lateral movements, which is part of most typical threat models, where they're going to try to move laterally in the network to find higher value targets.
And so to me, this really helps against the number one cause of breaches that I've seen. I was talking to the company the other day, they do penetration testing, and they said they generally can break into a company through user credentials 90% of the time, and then once they have access to one system, they're able to go in that whole low, slow threat where you're crawling around the network, nobody notices, right? Because you do have access to everything. And so in this case, the threat actor wouldn't actually be able to see anything else, correct?
They wouldn't, not by default. It definitely makes their job a lot more difficult.
So to me, when I think about the world and the way it's going, all these digital technologies bringing in cloud, IoT, to me, Zero Trust is the only way to secure it now. I really see how you could possibly do it using a lot of the older VLAN type technologies that just wouldn't scale. And I don't know if you share that opinion or not.
I do, and I think it's a little bit more elegant approach. It's a more granular approach, and it makes more sense logically to only grant users explicit access to what they need and nothing they don't.
All right. Well, thanks for the demo. That was fantastic. I think Zero Trust is, again, one of those things that everybody should know about. If you haven't started your journey down it now, at least go through the educational process of understanding what it is, because this is going to be a foundational component to how you secure your network moving forward.